Thank you for joining us. And today we are talking about HR and employing veterans. Joining us today from Namos Solutions is Anna Clarke, who is Head of People, and James Murphy, who is CEO of TechVets. So welcome both.
Hi, good to be here.
So first of all, Anna, I wanted to ask you, can you tell us a bit about Namos Solutions and what the company does?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are an Oracle specialist. So we're a consultancy. We were founded 10 years ago, actually. So it's our 10-year anniversary this year. We've grown hugely over that time, but we essentially are a consultancy and we implement Oracle products and run, large multi-pillar projects for a range of clients.
Within your industry, we are reading a lot about tech skills shortages. Do you think this is true? And what does it look like in reality?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I've certainly noticed, the huge growth in the UK tech sector. I think we're no different to other organisations. There's been, I think, a huge spike in, tech and digital roles being advertised at the moment. So we're seeing, it's a very candidate-led market at the moment where we're not seeing the kind of volume of candidates come through that we normally would. And it's a very competitive landscape out there. It's challenging to find, good and skilled candidates that kind of, tick off all the skills that are required for our positions. So we are certainly noticing at the moment. And also, I think employees at the moment, especially through the pandemic and over the past, 12 to 18 months, 24 months, candidates are rethinking their life priorities. So I think the focus is on, broadening skill sets of the current workforce, but kind of trying to think outside the box in order to try and bridge that skills gap. So that's certainly something we're focusing on and have been focusing on over the last 12 months, looking at new ways to bring in skills into the market. Because, what we're seeing really is the demand for skills is far outweighing the supply of candidates who are able to fill them. So we need to look at other options, really.
And what kind of roles are you trying to fill across tech? And I mean, are they sales roles, marketing roles, kind of more hands-on roles? What's the breadth like?
Yeah. I mean, it's a real variety. So we've got project management roles, so project managers who come to, lead some of our technical projects, and then the breadth of Oracle skill sets, so technical consultants who specialise in Oracle products, functional consultants who specialise in finance or HR, but from an Oracle perspective. So who have that experience working on the Oracle systems, able to implement it, and also managed services. So consultants who support our clients, from a kind of a help desk perspective, but again, with a very strong kind of Oracle skill set. We also do recruit internally. So for our internal roles, as you mentioned, marketing, sales, HR and admin type vacancies as well.
I imagine with that sort of breadth, it's got to be expensive because, I talk to as many organisations as possible and I work directly with the HR teams. And the amount of times I've had a conversation that's ended up with a sort of deep discussion around how costly it is to drag people with the required tech skills, as you say, there are less people with those skills. That's always going to happen as technology moves so much faster than humans can. But it's costing them so much to try to pull people out that actually on average they're looking at around £20,000 as a desired sort of pay rise for every individual that they're plucking from somewhere else. Are you seeing the same sort of stuff?
Absolutely. And when I said a candidate-driven market, that's exactly what it is. People are being headhunted and poached for huge salaries and huge hikes in pay that it's hard to keep up with. Absolutely. And we try to do a lot of our hiring directly. So we've got a small recruitment team, but we also use agencies as well. So absolutely, we're seeing the cost of hire is certainly increasing.
And when you're hiring, have you always looked at the kind of veteran talent pool, or is it something fairly new to Namos?
I'd say it's fairly new, actually. So we launched a veterans program last year, so in 2021, early in the year, and we took on our first small cohort of 2 veterans around March to May time. So it's a relatively new venture for us, but we ended up taking 5 veterans in total last year. So 3 towards the end of the year, and we've seen already, huge positives from doing that program, and we're planning to continue that this year as well.
That's fantastic news. And so with those candidates that came through, what marked them out from their non-military counterparts?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I mean, something we've really noticed. So we've kind of traditionally run an associate program, so taking more of a traditional, graduate program, so taking individuals who've come out of university degrees or other education backgrounds, bringing them through our training program, so a boot camp and things like that. So we tried to kind of mirror that, but have a focused campaign for veterans, because I think what we found was, their life experience and skills, and also their characteristics, really set them apart. And we found we had so many quality candidates coming through for our vacancies, more so than what we had for maybe other traditional routes. So I think for the individuals that we hired last year, I think we found that they were able to hit the ground running quite a lot quicker because they've already come with huge variety of skills and experience, both from their military or forces experience and background, but also some of them also have civilian experience as well in other jobs. And I think there's such a breadth of roles available in the military and in the forces. So engineering backgrounds, even IT backgrounds. So you're sort of getting all of that skills and experience on top of the work ethic and fantastic qualities that they have developed over their time and experience in the forces, bringing all those things together, the perfect candidates for our roles.
That's really good to hear, actually, because I think, and I was a service leaver myself, and you go through the whole process where everyone keeps saying to you over and over again, the soft skills and the cognitive skills are something you should really rely on. You'll have loads of that, and that's really going to put you apart from other candidates. But then you get that it's sort of embedded into you so much that you start to think, well, is that just standard sort of platitudes where people just chuck that nonsense out and there's no real substance behind it? And so it's really good when hiring managers and HR heads of HR, etc., are coming out and saying that's exactly why the veteran talent pool is so good. And we definitely see that the ability to pick up the technical skills quite quickly is a huge boom, because you're able to chuck them in the mix, and all the teamwork and all that other stuff that sort of comes with most service leavers and veterans. Add to that the ability to learn really quickly, as you say, and the progress tends to be a lot faster. They get embedded into the organisation a lot quicker. That's really, really promising to hear that directly from a team, hiring them.
Absolutely, and I mean, especially for us, in our consulting roles, it's very sort of client facing, and those kind of leadership skills and team working, they are absolutely critical, and it's things that are harder, I think, to learn and to train up in. So candidates coming with those skills and experience is fantastic, because you can teach the technical skills. We've got training available, we've got career paths, we've got a dedicated learning and development lead at Namos who supports people through the learning paths and technical skills. But I think coming with those sort of core personal skills is absolutely crucial for us, and something we highly value.
If you were going to give advice to somebody else who headed up a HR department and they were thinking about starting an academy or putting together some kind of program to bring in veterans, what advice would you give them? Where should they start?
That's the big one.
That's a good question. I mean, so we, as I said, we kind of mirrored ours on our associate program. So we run a 12 to 18 month, intake with people, bringing people on with zero Oracle skills and getting them trained up, etc. So I think if you're going to do sort of something like that, maybe try and do sort of a smaller cohort. So do a dedicated, veterans intake. I would suggest, having a kind of focused training path. So we run a boot camp. The most recent boot camp we run was actually 2 months long, and that was kind of intertwined with a bit of shadowing and on the job kind of learning, as well as doing technical skills and those sorts of things. So having that kind of, I guess, a bit of structure around it, but also a bit of kind of community support. So taking on a smaller cohort, maybe with 1 or 2 or 3, just to get sort of started, but having that kind of community of ex-service personnel or veterans, I think really helps as well. And just, so I think having support in place and also a bit of structure around sort of the training side would be really helpful.
So how has Namos Solutions worked with TechVets?
We're planning on, I think, a spring, early summer intake. So we're working towards that with James and getting our vacancies advertised and supported. So we've used other avenues last year to help with our recruitment campaigns, bringing veterans in. But yeah, so this year our focus will be working with TechVets, and because I know there's such a wealth of support that you provide to the veteran community, and can really provide some value to us.
From your experience of working with TechVets in the community, how many people want to get into Oracle or want to get trained with Oracle skills?
So to be honest, that's a really difficult sort of metric to gauge. Generally speaking, we've got 3,123 people in our online community, and I suppose if you look at roughly around 50% of those are looking to get into a sort of security-based career. But with that in mind, they are all sort of passionate, or at least very curious about technology in general. And that's important. It's about understanding how much of a technologist you want to be, because it's going to be a huge learning curve and continuous as well. So there will be loads of people that would be interested in Oracle. I think most importantly, people would be drawn to Namos Solutions because of the type of company that they are, the culture that they have, and the fact that they have a proven templated solution of bringing on veterans. There are veterans already there, and because it's a warm and welcoming environment for them for the right reasons. It's the appreciation of the skills and the experience, not that they're vulnerable. And because they're seen as an absolute bonus value add to the business, that's going to be a real positive place for people to come and work. And I think that tends to draw a lot of the veterans and service leavers. I had a conversation with someone this morning on LinkedIn, literally an hour and a half ago, all about what is most important. And it absolutely should be the culture, the vision and mission, the sort of ethics and the principles that underpin an organization. The job role, can be a bit more flexible in that regard.
So Anna, when you're interviewing for these jobs, so for example, this year you work alongside TechVets and you get some great candidates forward into the interview stage. What key things are you looking for during that selection process?
Looking for transferable skills. So obviously we wouldn't expect candidates to have Oracle technical skills on their CVs or available. So we'd be looking for any transferable skills that could match our business. But I think most importantly is around that kind of attitude piece, and if they're, I suppose, how much they want to come into the industry, and looking at that kind of drive and determination, and that kind of will match up to how successful they will be in taking on the training and engaging with that and being a successful employee. So really we'd be looking at those transferable softer skills, things around leadership, have they led teams, or worked in teams, that kind of initiative, and those sorts of things I think would be we really do focus on for our roles here. Yeah. So
how important to you is a CV from a candidate? Or because there's a lot of talk now that CVs don't mean anything, they're not worth looking at. What's your take? Because you actually, you're at the coalface.
Yeah, no, that's interesting actually. I think the CV is obviously the first thing we see that from a candidate. So I think it needs to give us enough of a feel for the skills and experience that an individual might bring to the organisation. But I completely agree. I think we're certainly moving away from the assumption that someone needs to have a degree or all these qualifications to be a suitable candidate for a role. I think what's most important is those kind of the skills and experience. So bringing that out on the CV, I think is important, but it's not the end point. So if someone has those kind of key things we're looking for drawn out in the CV, I think it's more important to have that initial conversation with the individual and get to know them as a person, because that just won't come through on a piece of paper.
Yeah, I think the reason why I have an issue with the CV is just because not everyone is good at writing them. Otherwise we would all be in that sort of field where we are writing stuff for a living. And that can be really difficult if you have learning difficulties, maybe dyslexia or something along those lines. Then it's going to be challenging how to articulate that in a way that someone's going to really jump in and buy into the skills is difficult. I think a cover letter is a wonderful way in which you can at least get a bit more about yourself across. And I've just been looking at a number of CVs myself, and picking out a couple of bits, knowing that not everything's going to be in that CV. As long as there's a couple of little bits for me to then latch onto. The cover letter was where I can see people selling themselves in a way that I can then start understanding a bit more about them. But I suppose that first interview is the most important stage, where you can really get them to provide some context.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I think for our veterans program, we encourage cover letters as well, because we totally agree that tells us more about the individual often than what's on the CV, especially for roles where we're not expecting them to come in with any experience. Certainly for our experienced hire roles, it's probably more important to to have those things laid out in the CV. But certainly for the roles that we would hire our veteran intakes for, absolutely, it's about the person, and that certainly comes through in more cover letter.
Looking forward to the veterans program that you're launching this year with TechVets. Can you tell us a bit more about what that's going to look like? What can people who apply expect?
Absolutely, yeah. So we typically have sort of a two-phase assessment selection process. So we'll have a first stage interview, and then following that we'll have like an assessment centre type event. It sounds a bit scary, but it's not. We're a very easygoing organisation, and we try and make it a fun and interactive type day. Hopefully we'll be able to do that face to face this year, depending on COVID restrictions. We have done them virtually in the past, but it'll be a two-stage process. And then individuals who are successful would come and join Namos in a particular role. So we've got lots of different disciplines across the business. So as I said earlier, there's HR consultants, there's finance consultants. So we'll kind of match up individuals to the best fit role for them, and then they'll go into a bootcamp training program once they come on board. So we go through an induction process for all new joiners, get them all set up in the company and welcomed, and then as I said, launch into the bootcamp and training and start their journey towards becoming Oracle consultants. So that kind of involves a mix of different training, self-learning. You'll have access to different training options, and both technical skills and also the softer skills as well, both external and internal training as well, I should add, and also just getting on the job and getting your hands dirty and seeing how it's done. Because I think a lot of the time, a lot of the feedback we get from our associates is that that's the best way to kind of learn. So put those skills in practice. There's only so much you can learn doing a course on a computer. Obviously that gives you the foundations, but I think getting out there and actually doing the doing, which is what we certainly encourage to. And as I said, we've found that our veterans have really hit the ground running and come up to speed so quickly because of that experience and background they already come equipped with.
James, do you think this is the future of how companies, especially in the tech and cybersecurity sector, are going to recruit?
I think they definitely should. I think, Anna made the perfect point earlier, though. It has to be scalable. It has to be slow and steady to start with. You've got to pick you've got to pick your right number, and that way you're able to learn from all the data that you can glean from that first cohort. All of a sudden, that the iterative process means that it's only going to develop. But yes, essentially, where you haven't got enough people, but you've got the right candidates out there, they just may not have the 5 years experience in industry and all manner of tech skills. I think there was even one job where someone posted on LinkedIn that a chap was approached for a job that needed 4 years experience in a technology that he himself had built 18 months prior to that. So there's all sorts of disjoint behaviors, but it's a very challenging time for HR. How can you get a job out there to cover every diverse background possible, to appeal to every type of individual that could be out there? It's really difficult. So I think these programs mean that the candidates that may not have all the technical skills are going to learn on the job, and so many people learn better that way. It means that they get a really good understanding of the business and vice versa. So that candidate comes out at the end and they are not just trained on the tech stack, they understand the HR processes, the cultures, the team dynamics, the clients. And all of a sudden, you've got this wonderful sort of ingrained loyalty where people really buy into the mission. They really want to be part of what Namos are doing. And I think, to be perfectly frank, there are more and more companies that are looking at this type of model. If you're massive like AWS, you've clearly got programs already running, but it's easier for them. Some of the small and medium enterprises are now starting to build these smaller programs, and it's working really well.
Okay, so any kind of HR executives that are watching this now, if they're interested, they should get in touch with you at TechVets, and you can offer advice on how to build that? Yeah,
absolutely. Ping an email to team@techvets.co. It is just .co. I always get people asking me if it's .com or .co.uk. And yeah, I'll get straight back in touch, and we can discuss how we can make the magic happen.
Brilliant. Okay, well, Anna and James, thank you so much for this morning's chat. And for anybody who is watching now who would like to find out more about the Namos Solutions programme that launches later this year, then head over to the techvets.co website, where you'll be able to find all the information you need to apply.